Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Spread music. Alright, we're live. Good evening. Hello. It's Thursday. Right, it's Thursday. Damn. Made myself a cup of tea. Because I've noticed that every time I stream, I tend to drink soda. And that's not really good now, isn't it? So I figured I need to find an alternative to keep me awake. I know that maybe tea is not exactly the most intuitive answer, but well. Because like in my mind, if I made coffee, that's just dumb. I will be too awake, I guess, too stimulated. And soda is not good because it's too much sugar. I think someone made a tweet showing that in one sugary drink, it has like 12 teaspoons of sugar in it. That's like insane. Like, damn. Like, no wonder, no wonder a lot of people tend to move away from that. They don't recommend it. And I figured, yeah, I think I should probably follow that path. I shouldn't drink, at least not too often, maybe like once a week, once every 2 weeks. But at the same time, I kind of want, to watch over my diet a bit. So I'll probably not drink those at all for the next, I guess we'll see how long. I try not to put set targets for those kind of things because I'm really bad at those, at, committing to my targets. But yeah, I'll just try to be more mindful about my food intake to make sure that I don't get too bloated or just stay healthy in general, I suppose. But anyway, so what are we going to do for this stream? Let's see if it's warm enough for me to drink. Okay, seems about right. So what I'm planning to do is, as the title suggests, I'll be going through LonerBox's video on abortion. It's I'll admit it's not exactly a topical thing at the moment, but I do think that it's something that I really want to get into. Like, I'm kind of interested to know the details of the argument. I've watched a couple of debates about it, whether it is Vosh or Destiny, and I haven't watched any panels though that involve women. Ironically, we were talking about abortion. I have seen some women talking about it in passing, content creators, that is, but never really in detail. Because like it's kind of like a given in a lot of respects, but of course in here it's not. And from, what was it? Like a couple of weeks, no, not a couple of weeks, like last week. No, wait, yeah, a couple of weeks ago we watched the RKUHP debate on Mata Najwa, and the Vice Minister of Law, was it? Law and Human Rights, they mentioned about how the new RKUHP, well, not the new, but the RKUHP will include laws pertaining to abortion. So that would be interesting, because I think that will spark some debates, I guess. But overall, it's not really, like, even without whether or not it's relevant or whether or not it's like a hot topic, it is something that I do want to learn about, especially in terms of the philosophy that comes with it. Because like my current understanding, I am, full disclosure, I am pro-choice, absolutely, and like my reasoning is pretty surface level, I'll admit. It's never really beyond, well, it's the women who carry, well, it's the birthing people, I guess that's the right term nowadays, who carry the fetus, and therefore it should be within their right to decide what to do with it. And also, you know, a fetus is just a clump of cell. That's the more punchy, no, not punchy, more antagonistic, contentious remark that one would say about arguing about abortion rights. They would say it's a fetus, it's not a baby. Why should we grant them the same level of rights as a human being when they're only a clump of cell, or well, a fetus in this case? Which I agree, yeah. I mean, they're not exactly sentient per se. And aside from that, of course, there's the sociological and economic arguments that, starting from sociological, I guess, if someone is forced, quote unquote, well, not quote unquote, they are forced in a way. If they don't have the means to get an abortion, it means you're forcing them to carry that fetus until they give birth, and that already comes at the cost of their, more often than not, their economic opportunities. They have to give up their jobs, and also the cost of giving birth is also high, and the treatment afterwards as well, and of course the responsibility of raising, in this case, a human being, because you already give birth to it. So yeah. Aside from that, before that means, like, at the back of your head, you don't want to, like, deep down, you know that you don't want to raise this child. Yes, you have the option of going to an orphanage. You can leave them there, or you can find foster families who are looking to adopt a child. You can also do that for sure. But again, the process of giving birth itself is already life-threatening in a lot of ways, right? So there's that. And so that's both sociological and economic risk that comes with it, and that's only from the parent side. And meanwhile, like, from the side of the child themselves, assuming that they know that their parents initially didn't even want them to be born, and also considering that in all likelihood, if the parent doesn't want to have them in the first place, they might not have the optimum level of care and attention. There's just a lot of fuckery going on. So yeah. And there's that bodily autonomy argument, which I don't quite understand, honestly. I mean, okay, is bodily autonomy really about that you should have autonomous rights to decide what to do with your body? Is that it? I know that people tend to link that to the legal argument, I guess, that is not possible to criminalize abortion, because it means that you're granting personhood to the fetus, right? And it means you're infringing on bodily autonomy in a way where you are not allowed to decide whether or not you want someone to keep, oh god, I don't want to use this word, but to rely on you. Let's say to rely on you as a source of sustenance, or to depend on you for your own life. You don't want someone else. You don't want. Okay, here, hang on. Okay, you don't want the state to force you. What's the word for it? To keep someone alive. To keep someone's lives. Okay, to keep someone's life attached to you. Is that it? Maybe? Does that make sense? Like, the analogy that people tend to use is the the fiddler argument, which is a very odd analogy. So basically, they're saying that, say that you got into an accident with a famous violinist. Sorry, not fiddler, violinist. Why fiddler? The fuck. And you wake up in a hospital, and you got the famous violinist attached to you. And sadly, the violinist can only remain alive if they remain attached to you. So, following the argument, the logic behind criminalizing abortion, it means that the state would not allow you to sever the famous violinist. Which, okay, makes sense. Although people then tend to respond to that by saying, it's such an unlikely scenario. Plus, also, in the case of an accident, you're not exactly voluntarily getting into that interaction, right? It's an accident after all. I guess in my case, then, I guess the counter would be, well, okay, maybe it's not like you get into an accident with the violinist, but let's say you're in the same vehicle and then you get into an accident. It's because of you. It's because like the accident is still caused by you. You don't want the accident to happen. You don't want for the passenger's life to be linked to you. Should the state be okay? Should it be okay if you were to say, nope, I don't want this person to be attached to me? Bye. It's a very convoluted line of arguments, if I'm gonna be honest, which doesn't really sell, if you're gonna be honest, because like people can easily twist that into the emotional argument. Oh, we're talking about a fetus, a baby. Well, they wouldn't say it's a fetus. They would say it's a baby. It's a baby. How could you? Blah 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 blah. So yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of jumping the gun here. I'm pretty sure maybe LonerBox will cover these talking points and identify the shortcomings. I've watched like the first few minutes, and that's pretty much the goal of the video. I've rambled for holy fuck for 15 minutes apparently. No wait, 10 minutes. Let's just get right to it, shall we? Let's go. I think I should hide these things, don't I? Hide. Right when the music stops, so that's nice. Wait, where's the... Oh, there you go. And there you go. Okay, let's go. Shit.
Hey, so abortion, that's a thing. People are talking about this.
Indeed.
In the US, Roe v. Wade, whoever that is, was recently overturned, and more than 10 states have either banned or imposed restrictions on the abortion procedure. Was this good or was it bad? People are asking this. I'm going to ask this. Now, in this video.
Okay, so I think he released this video not long after Roe v. Wade was repealed by the Supreme Court. Essentially, through that court decision, well, not the Supreme Court decision. No, wait. Oh, yeah, it is the Supreme Court decision in regards to Roe v. Wade. Essentially, it guarantees federal right to abortion. However, considering that now the U.S. Supreme Court is packed with conservative judges, they tend to refer to them as activist judges. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Maybe because it implies that they are not impartial. Although it's kind of like irrelevant, I guess, because like of course they have their own biases. I don't understand why. Like, how can you expect the Supreme Court to not be biased one way or another? Anywho, because of that, now it's not let go. Now it is up to the state to decide whether or not they would allow abortion within their state. It is up to them to regulate it. So yeah, obviously, as the video imply, states have started to, the red states have started to ban abortion, develop new regulation. It's very convenient that it didn't take long after Roe v. Wade was repealed, and then suddenly, voila, within a matter of days, if not weeks, within a matter of weeks, if not days, states started to regulate this issue. Hi, boo boo. Yes, it was you who told me about the amount of sugar in soda. That's why I decided not to anymore. But I also saw the like a Twitter video showing, like visually showing, calculating the amount of sugar based on the ingredient composition thing, and then it's 12 spoons of sugar. It's like, oh shit, fuck, man, I'm not gonna touch that anymore. So yeah, thank you though. I'll try to cut it down even further than I already do. Because like before this, I already wait. Because like before you warned me about it, I used to drink that like once every 2 days, even during the daytime, to keep me awake when I'm working, when I'm feeling lazy, when I lack dopamine. I guess I would crack a can open and start drinking. And yeah, it's unhealthy. So I've started cutting down on that front, but I still drink it every now and then when I stream. Well, not every now and then. It's usually every time I stream. But now I'm trying to cut it down even further by resorting to tea. Anywho, Stunlock, as always. Where were we? Right. Convenient that the red states, within weeks, if not days, already have laws ready to sign the moment that Roe v. Wade was revoked, repealed, whatever the term is. I'm not a legal expert.
Was this good or was it bad?
Jesus.
People are asking this. I'm going to ask this. Now, in this video. So, just a quick disclaimer. I am 100% pro-choice. I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade was bad, but I do think the abortion debate is a lot more complicated than some people give it credit for, and I am going to talk about some places where I think my side's arguments can fall short. So, part 1. Choice versus life. So, from my experience, there are 3 main places the abortion debate can go. There's pro-life versus pro-choice, which weighs the bodily autonomy of a mother against the fetus's right to live. Mm-hmm. There's the argument about whether or not a fetus has any right to life at all. In other words, where does life begin? And there's the discussion of what the world would look like if a pro-life or pro-choice position is put into practice.
Now that's interesting. I've never really seen people talk about number 3. Or I guess they do. Yeah, I guess this is where they would start talking about, say, sexual assault victims, SA victims, R victims, where then they would, if we ban abortion, it would mean that they would be forced to carry, essentially, the fetus of their assailant, and that's fucked up in a lot of ways. And it's unfortunate that within the Indonesian context, and I guess I imagine in just generally conservative states, they would even force the victim to get married with the offender, the sex offender. And that's a whole nother level of fucked upness. And yeah, I really don't understand how they could seriously consider that as a solution, disregarding the trauma that the victim has to go through, even from the moment itself. And now, following the conservative ideology, I guess, essentially, the victim is now forced to spend the rest of their life with the assailant, with the offender. That's fucked. That's inhumane.
Starting with the first one, you can probably guess why this conflict is so never-ending. One side will say, my body, my choice, and the other will say that your right to choose ends where another body begins. Or something like this.
When women say my body, my choice, I agree. Yes, we have the right to our bodies and our bodily autonomy. Women and their bodies must be respected and protected. Bodily rights are especially important when a woman is pregnant, because there is more than one body involved. After all, carrying a baby is a bit more complicated than, say, carrying a football.
And here you have the infamous clash of pro-choice versus pro-life, where the unstoppable force of bodily autonomy meets the immovable object of, well, what about the autonomy of the body living inside of you? It's easy to see why arguments like this can very quickly reach an impasse.
This is where then people will start talking about personhood. People will start talking about, is the fetus sentient yet? Should we grant them by personhood, as in should we acknowledge them as a human being? Therefore, should be granted the same human rights to not be murdered, essentially. And yeah, it's complicated. Like the thing is, the part that bothers me a lot is that I think this is something that I need to look into, but then at the same time, sorry, I'm arguing with myself inside my head already. So what I was trying to say just now is that, okay, sure. What about the right for the fetus to life, right? To acknowledge their personhood. Okay. Are they though? At what point do they become sentient? We can funnel them into that, right? And then we'll start talking about the development of babies, of fetuses. When do they start developing senses and whatnot? They're maybe not heartbeat. Yeah, there you go. You're already immediately you're stumped, because then they would say, oh, but then, because like most people would realize they are pregnant during the first trimester, and that's usually when the majority of the abortion would happen. I mean, it's quite logical, right? Because that's usually when you realize that you are pregnant. Therefore, that's when the majority of abortion happens. As much as the conservative, at least within the US, would tend to argue, oh, these Democrats, they're trying to argue that you can abort a baby even if you're 9 months in or something like that. When it's really unlikely, unless if it is very life-threatening for the person who carries the fetus. It's absurd. And now we're faced against conditions where, if such a condition does happen, where, I mean, in all likelihood, both of them would die, both the fetus and the carrier, the person who carries it. Yeah, and then suddenly the doctor cannot, abort the fetus because it's illegal. Then what the fuck? Both of them would die. So it's really messed up. But what I was trying to say is that you're immediately met with an impasse, because then you would get you have to argue all the nitty-gritty. Okay, if a fetus has developed their heartbeat, does that mean they're already sentient? Or should we wait until the first brain activity? And it's overly convoluted. I would advise against going there, because again, just say it's a fetus. They should not be granted the right to live. I'm sorry. If the person who carries the fetus decides to not, facilitate the development of the fetus until they give birth, then it should be up to them.
If you're a pro-lifer, you will almost definitely believe that life begins at conception, meaning that someone using their bodily autonomy to have an abortion is the same as someone using their autonomy to kill a 3-year-old in the street. Now, if we can show that a fetus is not a person, the problem goes away. But the way you get there can be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Some people, and by people I mean middle-class philosophy students, will try to be extra clever and argue that bodily autonomy trumps the pro-life position, even if you agree that a fetus is just as much a person as a fully grown adult. Personally, I think this approach is very unnecessary and ultimately flawed.
This is when I get to my 10-minute rant about bodily autonomy, about the famous violinist argument. It's too convoluted.
And I will now demonstrate this through the medium of two blokes arguing on the internet.
Here we go.
Okay. Whew. I think I can meet you halfway here. Let's just say I agree that life, personhood, begins at conception. I think the pro-choice argument still works. Let me just ask you some questions. Do you like freedom? I'm sorry. What? I don't like freedom, okay?
That's kind of a good American accent. I'll give him that.
I love freedom. Freedom can come over to my house and my sister. Okay, so... No. Let me stop you right there. Do you know who the you're talking to? Brother, my middle name is Freedom. My last name... Freedom,
okay, we can skip
Justice
this.
Grant Doctor.
Oh,
Baby's
wait,
freedom,
okay.
not to be killed in the... I support women's freedom just as much as I support a baby's freedom not to be killed in the womb by some Nazi Democrat doctor. Yield. Okay.
Okay.
So my next question is, it's just yes or no question. Do you support the right to self-defense? Of course I support the right to self-defense. My middle name is self-defense. Cool, so... The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, the right to rise up against government tyranny. It might not be this year, it might not be in 1,000 years, but when the time comes, you'll bet your hickory sweet ass the American people will be armed and ready to give them hell.
I'm surprised he didn't go for a southern accent, although it's probably too much for him.
Kyle Rittenhouse, 2024.
Jesus.
Okay, so why do you not support a woman's right to defend herself against a fetus? Hey, hold on. Wait. Against a person? Against a parasite of a person. A person who is attacking her body.
No, the language becomes very loaded, which is not optically optimum, effective. Because then, we haven't reached that point exactly, especially if you're trying, as he said, trying to meet them halfway, meet the conservative halfway. Because then, through their perspective, we're talking about a fetus, or, to their minds, a person, a baby, which obviously has more moral weight. So yeah, calling them a parasite, which I almost said that, honestly, which of course it's very loaded, it's very, that was my cat, very antagonistic and very dehumanizing to their perspective, then yeah, you would be considered as, an asshole, essentially.
Sapping her nutrients, making her sick, permanently altering the shape of her body, causing her emotional torment, increasing her chance of death? I'm sure you agree that self-defense doesn't have to be proportionate, right? If someone attacks you with a golf club and all you have is a gun, you should still have the right to use the gun because they're the aggressor, right? Well, yeah, but So, if you can use legal force against an adult aggressor, why not a fetus? Sorry, a very young person. But surely your bodily autonomy matters more than someone who is deciding to physically attack you.
But they're not exactly attacking you, right? Again, it's a false framing. It's not like I've ever heard anyone using these exact framing during actual debates. I guess LonerBox is trying to capture the most extreme version of how the debate would go.
Decided? No, not even decided. Look, this is why I keep telling you to watch the Philosophy Tube video. Oh, Christ, not the Philosophy Tube video again. Look, it's okay. I'll walk you through it. So,
Here comes the
There's
violinist.
this pro-life radio host who gets kidnapped.
Oh,
He wakes
no.
up on the floor wired to a violinist who has kidney failure, and if he disconnects himself, the violinist will die.
So they can't do a transplant?
Well, there's going to be one, but it doesn't happen. Never mind that. Basically, in this hypothetical, he could be there until the violinist dies of old age. The point is, do you think he has a right to disconnect himself?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, but
Well, so you agree. By disconnecting, he is physically taking a life in exchange for his bodily autonomy. You just admitted that. Sometimes bodily autonomy trumps the right to life.
Yeah, but there's like a huge rift between some very random niche scenario of having someone attached to your body and their life dependent on being attached to you and a fetus. People just get lost in this line of arguments. At least, especially if you're talking, I don't know, to a normie, I guess. So yeah, the more that I think about it, the more that I feel like it's not feasible to use this line of arguments. So yeah, unless you're like debating with someone who's studying philosophy, I guess.
But oh, did the radio host choose to be kidnapped?
Kalau kamu dari Indo.
Shit, I forgot to buy YouTube Premium. I think I'll replace my... Oh, God. I'll replace my... I have in my notes, by the way, on the side. I'll replace my YouTube membership with someone
So is this...
for YouTube Premium.
You're really going into
Did
that?
the radio host choose to be kidnapped?
Well, no, but like...
Like, there you go. And then they would say, well, is it an accident, though? Because like if you compare that to sex, it's more intentional. There's more intentionality. Although, of course, then you can get into the argument, what if it's the R word, or if it's an SA, and sometimes say like even if you don't intend to, accidents happen, right? And yeah.
Wait,
Okay, I wonder where he's gonna go.
come on, like not all women choose to get pregnant either. Not just with rape cases, but like, contraception isn't 100% effective
Yeah,
either.
there you
wait,
go.
wait.
Okay.
Before we do that, none of that matters because you would still be pro-choice even if no one took any precautions, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's why you shouldn't go to the R case or SA case, because then you're ceding ground in a way.
Yeah, sure.
Good. So the problem is this philosophy tube video is, what's that word you communists always use? It's disanalogous. First of all, with respect to all the ladies out there, 9 months of pregnancy and childbirth is not the same as being indefinitely wired to a comatose patient on the floor. I know, cancelled for misogyny, but also, brother, you can choose not to have sex.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Like, yeah, just okay, amen, brother. Just choose not to have sex. Five head. Like,
I'm sorry, is that an argument? Look, I don't want to be mean, okay? I love women. I have a wife and 3 beautiful daughters after all. Okay, let's do it this way. Now, I know you're not a parent, but that's okay. Let's say you're not the best driver. You're out in your car at night, you make a mistake, and you crash. You're fine, but your 3-year-old child in the passenger seat is dead.
well, that's a bit grim, but sure.
Yeah. But let's say an angel comes down. The angel's name is Shen Babiro. And he says, let's just say, hypothetically, I can save your kid. But here's the catch. If I do
God.
save this kid, I need
What is it, Shen
to catch
Babiro?
Shen Babiro.
Shen.
And he says, let's just say, hypothetically, I can save your kid. But here's the catch. If I do save this kid, I need to cast a spell that makes you experience 9 months of pregnancy and then childbirth. Now, my liberal friend, here is the $1 million question.
Would
Are
you
you
do
going to
it?
save your child, or are you going to choose your bodily autonomy?
Well, yeah, I'll save my child, of course, but like you realize that doesn't work here, right?
Yeah, no, that is disanalogous because in this case, you already have the kid. You're attached to it in some respects. And besides, like, absent the... Because, like, if say it's not even your kid, then you should be allowed to say that you don't want to. Because, like, in order for it to be analogous, then you should not have any prior attachment to the kid. So, yeah.
Because I've chosen to raise that child.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't get triggered. Let's say it's not your child. Let's say it's your friend's child. My child. Let's say it's one
The
of my
fuck you, dude, if it's your
3
child.
beautiful daughters. Let's say it was some random kid in the street. Is there ever a time where you would let a child die for your mistake?
Okay. No, but I mean, well, no, I don't know.
Fuck, the Chad move would be to say no. I was like, hey, I mean, life sucks, but no. I would say no. Especially if it's some random kid in the street. Like, nah, sorry, man.
Like, have you heard how bad some pregnancies can be? Like, that isn't even to mention all the ones that can kill you. Not only that, but did you know a woman is significantly more likely to get murdered when she's pregnant? Like, you have to factor all of that in. Like, maybe you should still have the choice in that situation. Like,
It's not maybe. You must have that decision. You're ceding ground by saying, what was it?
did you know a woman is
Blah,
significant?
blah,
Like,
blah.
maybe you should still have
If you say maybe, then it weakens your
the
stance.
choice in that
So, no.
situation. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard question, isn't it?
Well, but it wouldn't be a hard question if we were talking about a fetus. Would it?
Well, no shit.
But you said your argument would work if fetuses were people. Now, why are you treating a fetus different from a 3-year-old? It's like you don't really think the fetus is a person. I'm sorry, brother.
Because we don't. Whenever we grant you that, okay, fine, let's consider the fetus a person and go through the whole violentness argument, is try to appeal to you. But deep down, no, we don't. It's like we're trying to meet you where you're at. If you're considering that a fetus is a person, that means let's create a hypothetical where it is also an adult. If anything, this shows that, hey, why is it if it's an adult, then it's okay if you disentangle yourself, you sever the attachment to that adult person, but it's not okay if it is with a fetus. That will be my rebuttal, I guess.
But your argument fails.
Oh, don't stop there. Oh, no.
Liberal destroyed. Trump 2024. Fuck Biden.
But yeah, I can get that in a real situation, it just gets too convoluted that it just gets tiresome.
So this is the best steel man I can give of both sides, and I honestly don't know what the counter is here. If you do, leave a comment. But from here, it always feels like the bodily autonomy argument is implicitly standing on the idea that a fetus is something different from a person. And although I do think Abigail had a lot of other good points in this video, I don't think this violinist comparison really works. The whole premise of her argument is that bodily autonomy can override a fetus's life, even if that fetus is seen as a person.
So during tonight's operation, I'm going to assume that the pro-life people are correct when they say that a fetus is morally fully equivalent to a grown human being. And I hope if you believe that, you'll stick around and watch the whole thing.
Now, obviously there is a level of threat and suffering where we do think it's okay to kill people, say in war or self-defense. So when she switches 9 months of pregnancy and childbirth for spending the rest of your life on a hard floor wired to a human vegetable and completely ignoring the choice factor, It looks like she's trying to force the level of suffering to a point where we're not really talking about pregnancy and abortion at all. But I did say I was pro-choice, so let's try another approach.
Hang on. Let's repeat that
Force
again.
the level of suffering, completely ignoring the choice factor. It looks like she's trying to force the level of suffering to a point where we're not really talking about pregnancy and abortion at all. But I did say I was pro-choice, so let's try another approach. Part 2. When does life begin? So just to avoid any confusion, I'm not going to make any distinction between life and personhood here.
Okay.
I'm just going to use the two words synonymously, so as soon as we decide that something is a life, that's when it deserves protection. First, we have life begins at conception. And there are lots of reasons people believe this, but one of them really is just that it's simple. While sperm and eggs are technically alive, they are distinctly different from what we would call a human life. When fertilization happens, that is technically when you become you, a newly formed, genetically unique organism. In other words, a human
Ad
being.
incoming.
Or
Oh god, not this ad. Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna get. Oh,
human zygote to be exact, or single organism. In other words, a human being, or single cell embryonic human zygote to be exact. And we know today that your genes are effectively switched on pretty much within the first 2 to 3 days of fertilization. So if your unique human development starts at conception, it seems logical to say life begins at conception. And there are a few arguments you can make against that. Let's start with the bad ones. 1, it's not a life.
There you go.
It's a cluster of cells. I'm sorry, I think you'll find you are a cluster of cells, Alan. Your mum is a cluster of cells. What are we all if not clusters of cells? Are we just going to look through?
okay, alright. You got me, LonerBox. I did say that. I did say that just now, earlier in the video.
The human development cycle and arbitrarily decide how many cells you need to be a person? No. 2, it's not a human life because it's not a moral agent.
What does that
Is
even
a
mean?
1-year-old a moral agent?
Yeah.
No. If you've met one, you know. 3, it's physically tied to its host. Well, it's also tied to the host for a good while after the point of viability. Is a newborn child fair game so long as it's still attached by the umbilical cord? No. 4, it looks like a dolphin fetus.
Oh, no.
Have you not seen the Charlie Kirk debate?
Do you truly, in your heart of
This one
hearts,
is really funny, honestly.
truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
Okay, so
Oh, I mean, that was a bit funny. Because, holy shit, man. Why would you consider that as a human fetus? That doesn't look like a human fetus. At least not one that you would, you know, like if you're Googling it, that would not how they would look like, right? Let's see. Human fetus. Yeah, it's pretty much like that. This is the usual picture. There you go. Like so. Definitely not like that. At least the stereotypical ones.
Yes.
This is a dolphin fetus.
really think I could use it as a rationale. Are we saying a child needs to look a certain way before we grant it protection?
Yeah, you know, dolphin. And yeah, exactly. And
Rationale. Are we saying a child needs to look a certain way before we grant it protection?
there you go. And the argument becomes this, that, okay, let's say if you're unfortunately genetically, what would be the term? Not deform, right? Is it deform? I guess it is. Then does that mean that you shouldn't be allowed, you shouldn't be granted protection? Then it becomes eugenics. So maybe don't go there, unless for some funny dunks.
And if they were ugly or ambiguous enough, it would be okay to kill them? Well, as long as no one tells the elephant man. Honestly, the thing with life begins at conception is that it actually is one of the easier positions to defend. Conception is the beginning of your journey as a unique human organism, and putting that starting point somewhere else can be a bit awkward, but not impossible. Here's a better question. Why do we struggle to agree on where life begins when it's so easy to agree on where life ends? If gene expression really is the starting point and essence of human life, why do we find it so easy to pronounce people dead before their gene expression has ended? Because, yes, gene expression does not immediately end when you die. Some genes even become more active when you die. On top of that, your cells can still grow. Your hair and fingernails don't continue growing. That one's a myth.
Oh, okay.
But what you
That's
can
scary.
do, even after death, is give birth. A phenomenon that goes by the charming name.
Oh, God, that's insane.
Even after death, is give.
Rare case of coffin birth. Are you kidding me? The pregnant woman's remains may also suggest that she underwent cranial surgery due to a life-threatening complication. Okay.
A phenomenon that goes by the charming name of coffin birth. So if
I need to look that up. That's... See? Okay, let's just open the wiki, I guess. Postmortem fetal extrusion is the expulsion of a non-viable fetus through the vaginal opening of the decomposing body of a deceased pregnant woman due to increasing pressure from intra-abdominal gases. It's non-viable, right? So this kind of postmortem delivery occurs very rarely during the decomposition of a body. The practice of But, okay, is there a particular reason why it needs to be taken out? I mean, they're both dead, essentially, right? Abdominal cavity generate gases, which causes the body to swell. Can squeeze the uterus, even forcing it downward, and it may turn inside out. Oh. Okay, it'd be forced out of the body through the vaginal opening. If a fetus is contained within the uterus, it could therefore be expelled from the mother's body through the vaginal opening when the uterus turns inside out. Oh, so there's no human intervention here. It just happens naturally. It mimics childbirth. The main differences lie in the state of the mother and fetus. They're both dead. And the mechanism of delivery. Right. Okay, I think we've read enough. Let's continue.
A phenomenon that goes by the charming name of coffin birth. So
Jeez.
if gene expression can continue after death, what is death? Well, apparently scientists don't agree on this one either, but they generally give two answers. One is when the heart stops, but you could also argue that not every stopped heart counts as a death. Doctors will often try to bring a stopped heart back with a defibrillator, and sometimes during surgery they'll even push someone's ribs apart and try to massage the heart back to life with their hands. The second answer they'll give is brain death, and this one is a lot more final. When the brain dies, it can't come back, and the patient is legally dead. Now, I don't want to get too far into the science here, so I can just simplify and ask, if a brain-dead patient could have the rest of their body kept alive by machines, would they still be alive? My answer would be no, and when something similar to that happens in real life, it looks like doctors agree. Why is that the case? Well, I would say it's because the thing we're tying to the brain is human consciousness. So when we talk about protecting human
I guess this is where we get into sentience?
life, we're not really talking about protecting DNA or cells or genes. We're talking about sentience. That's the
There you
thing
go.
that makes us alive. Or I was thinking if this was a philosophy tube video, this is where I would throw in the Descartes reference and say, I think, therefore I am, and I'd maybe say it in Latin first, but I can't pull that off. And when it comes to abortion, it turns out that humans first start to gain some level of sentience at around 18 to 25 weeks, which is
Okay.
roughly the same time we consider to be the point of viability outside of the womb, and well past the time of elective abortions in most of Europe.
18 to 25 weeks. That's like divided by 4, 24 4, 6 months. Okay. Or 4 months. The first trimester, how long is the first? Zero to 13 weeks. So yeah, well beyond when you would normally get an abortion, right? Average time of abortion before 12 weeks. Okay. Ba, 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 ba. Right, okay. This will be interesting to read from Planned Parenthood as well. So would be a good organization to read it. To read? Okay, but anyway. 12 weeks. Cool.
Out of the womb, and well past the time of elective abortions in most of Europe.
What is elective abortion? The term elective abortion or voluntary abortion describes the interruption of pregnancy before viability at the request of the woman, but not for medical reasons. Okay. Elective. Was it a elect to do so? Why does it have to be elective? Or voluntary abortion? Okay. Most abortions done today are elective, and thus it is one of the most frequently performed medical procedures. Okay. Oh, but so this article is trying to argue why we should not be using that term. Okay. Maybe we can read that later on.
Now, some of you might jump in here and say, well, what about people in comas? Or someone who's just been knocked out cold? Or someone who's sleeping? Can we kill them because they don't have consciousness? To which I
But
would
they are
say
conscious,
we
though.
do protect those people, but it's on the basis that we expect them to regain consciousness in the future. Ah, but couldn't you apply that same argument to fetuses? Should we not protect them because they might gain consciousness in the future? But that, I would argue, is comparing apples to oranges. In the case of a coma, their conscious experience has already established itself. The thing we're protecting already exists, and that isn't the case for the fetus.
Yeah, I think I heard this line of arguments when I was watching Destiny's debate with someone from TikTok, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the line of argument is that the person values the potentiality of consciousness. He was using, Destiny. Destiny was using the, how about if a person is dead? And should we value them as well? In relation to consciousness. Not exactly the same line of argument then, because then it's more like I guess that I forgot how the debate went. I think it was more like Destiny was questioning, okay, if you don't care whether or not the fetus is conscious yet and you think that they should be protected, how about dead people? They're not conscious anymore. Should we also protect them? And then the person responds to that by saying, but then the person is dead. There's no more consciousness. There's no more potential consciousness in the future. Whereas a fetus, it could in the future if it, goes through a successful birthing process.
And we don't typically protect things that have never existed yet. A seed is not a plant, etc. So going with consciousness, we now have a measure for life beginning and ending in the same way. And that's just nicer, isn't it? The one last objection you might have is, well, isn't that just kind of arbitrary? And yes, it is arbitrary. It's just as arbitrary as any other point you could use. The reason I would say this one is preferable over all the other ones is that in practice, it works. Almost all abortions will happen before this point, and for the ones that happen afterwards, well, that's when we're getting into the area of health emergencies. And in that case, you're kind of forced to choose one life over the other anyway. In practical terms, a society that believes life begins at consciousness can function in a morally consistent way. Whereas if you want the world to act as if life begins at conception, that can take you to some very strange places. Part 3.
Okay. Let's go back a bit.
And when it comes to abortion, it turns out that humans first start to gain some level of sentience at around 18 to 25 weeks.
It is concluded that the basic neuronal substrate, pretty much butchered that word, I think. Neuronal is like urinal, required to transmit somatosensory information develops by mid-gestation. However, the functional capacity of the neural circuitry is limited by the immaturity of the system. Thus, 18 to 25 weeks is considered the earliest stage at which the lower boundary of sentience could be placed. At this stage of development, however, there is little evidence for central processing of somatosensory information. Okay, let's go back a bit.
Therefore, protecting DNA. So when we talk about the thing we're tying to the brain, and when something similar to that happens in real life, it looks like doctors agree. No, and when something similar to a brain-dead patient could have the rest of their body kept alive by machines,
Are they alive?
would they still be alive? My answer would be no, and when something similar to that.
Okay, let's see. Life after brain death. The body of a brain dead person is usually not supported for very long. Doctors sometimes provide support in the form of a ventilator, hormones, fluids, etc. for several days if the organs will be used for donation or if the family needs more time to say goodbye. Damn, that's bleak. So technically there's no more brain activities, but they kept them quote unquote functioning. Like in terms of other bodily activities. Shit, that's dark. Okay, if all of the criteria for brain death are met, then it's pretty clear that there's nothing left and we're supporting the body. Yeah. Okay, let's go back a bit again.
Heart back with a defibrillator to massage the heart back is a lot more final. When the brain dies, it can't come back and the patient is legally dead. Now, I don't want to get too far into the science here, so I can just simplify and ask, if a brain-dead patient could have the rest of their body kept alive by machines...
If you're in a comatose state, does your brain still function? They should, right? Does your brain still work when you're in a coma? Someone who is in a coma, hang on, zoom in. Someone who's in a coma is unconscious and has minimal brain activity. So there's still brain activity. You're not brain dead. They're alive but can't be woken up and show no signs of awareness. The person's eyes will be closed and they'll appear to be unresponsive to their environment. Okay. I mean, it's NHS, pretty legit source, I imagine. Okay, so essentially we link it to brain activities, and based on the... Where is it?
I would say it's because we talk about cells or it's a lie. Descartes, but turns out 18 to 20.
According to this article, is that our first brain activities can be found within 18 to 25 weeks. So I guess if we look up, let's say, when you first identify... first fetus heartbeat, thank you. Usually as 5 to 6 weeks after gestation. I see. Okay. So that's like a month and a half. Right. Okay. So when someone brings up during the first trimester, you can already, the fetus will already have a heartbeat, then you can link it to a brain dead person, which is not exactly elegant, but At least it's better than saying, oh, the fetus is just a cluster of cell. I guess. That's what it comes down to, right? You're going to say that, oh, if it is a brain dead person and you can still support it through life support, ventilators and whatnot, but would that person be alive? They're not. So in the case of a fetus, then if it's only a heartbeat, then logically, if you want to be consistent, they're not alive.
25 weeks, which is roughly the same.
But then they will say something like, how about the potentiality of consciousness?
To regain consciousness in the future. Ah, but couldn't you apply that same argument to fetuses?
the exact moment that I want the video to be.
Should
Okay.
we not protect them because they might gain consciousness in the future? But that, I would argue, is comparing apples to oranges. In the case of a coma, their conscious experience has already established itself. The thing we're protecting already exists, and that isn't the case for the fetus. And we don't typically protect things that have never existed yet.
Yeah, but then I think they could still defend by saying, they could still use the same argument about potentially reaching or achieving consciousness. It's not regaining consciousness as someone who's in a comatose state, but yeah, it's not exactly foolproof then.
Perception, that can take you to some very strange places.
Okay, what's the final
In
point?
practical terms, a society that believes life begins at consciousness can function in a morally consistent way. Whereas if you want the world to act as if life begins at conception, that can take you to some very strange places.
Well, LonerBox, unfortunately, most people don't care if they're morally consistent. They cherry pick whenever they see fit.
Part 3, a feast of bullets. So if we're talking about positions we could actually practice in real life, let's see what might happen if you truly believe life begins at conception. First, you would immediately have to rule out contraception pills because their function is not just to stop eggs from fertilizing. They can also thin the lining of the uterus and stop fertilized eggs from implanting in the womb.
Wait, what? Others work by thinning the lining of your uterus, so if the egg and sperm connect, the embryo can't stick into the lining. Oh. Wait, is it reversible, right? What?
Function is not just to stop eggs from fertilizing. They can also thin the lining of the uterus and stop fertilized eggs from implanting in the womb.
The fuck? Contraception pills, thinning, uterus, wait, thin uterine lining, which makes the lining of the uterus thinner and causes lighter bleeding episodes. Okay. Sugar pills. Uh-huh. I see. Is it reversible? What was it just now? Hang on. I think I saw a pretty good line. Does birth control how long? Reverse. Can cause thinning of the end and may require considerable time for... Okay, let's read this real quickly. Okay. Include systemic side effects or vaginal bleeding, which are more pronounced with high-dose oral preparations. In addition, progestins... Wait. So you can experience vaginal bleeding from taking... Huh? Pre-cancerous proliferation. Are we still talking about birth control here? Okay, I don't know what the fuck this is. Okay, I think we're looking at the wrong thing now. All right. Let's go back. But it is still pretty concerning if a birth control pill can do that. And I would really like to know how long it would, go back to normal. Because that's pretty fucked. Like, I don't know what would happen internally. I think so far the indication is that it affects your period, like how severe it is, because it's thinner, there's less bleeding happening. Question mark? God, I need to read up on contraceptive pills because I do want to know. It's a bit unfair that there is more expectation for the women to take it, because like all contraceptive pills are designed for women. I don't know if there are any pills for men that lowers the viability of the sperm, I guess. Is there? Okay, hang on. Contraceptive pills. Where are we doing this? Pills for men. Okay, what is this? Clinical trials. See, it's still clinical trials. Are safe and well tolerated. Further analysis of data. Okay. What do they do? What is the male pill? Again, from NHS. Surprised that they're always the first one that pop up. What is the male pill? That's it? Okay. Well. I mean, condom and vasectomy. Yeah, sure. But then... Come on, is there anything else? I mean, I know that vasectomy is reversible in some ways. Okay, let's charge. Optimistic. This is still several years away. Damn, that's sad. All right, let's read this thing then. Show promise in early studies, and this came out in 2022. Okay. Two oral male contraceptive candidates were effective in suppressing hormones needed for sperm production and received a favorable response from most users. Okay. Which hormone exactly? Androgens. But are also similar to progesterone. Androgens, what do they do? Sex hormones. Okay. In males? Male, okay, functions in sperm. The expression of the male phenotype. What is Oop, no. Go away. Go away. I don't want you. What? How do you close that? Okay, go away. Meaning the production of okay. Alright, so you lower the development of spermatozoa. Okay. Another sunlock, but here we are.
In other words, they can allow a life to be conceived and then take it away immediately afterwards. If you believe life begins at conception, then those pills should be at least as horrifying to you as the act of abortion itself. Probably even more so because lots of people take the pill and, you can imagine, those things are slaying. If that's not enough, then allow me to introduce you to some of the worst extermination camps on Earth: fertility clinics. In a fertility clinic,
Oh, no.
eggs and sperm are extracted from people who are struggling to have babies and then fertilized in a lab. The egg is then transferred to the mother's body, hopefully it implants, and she becomes pregnant. This method of conception outside the body is called in vitro fertilization, or IVF. The problem is, IVF doesn't always work, and
Yeah,
so
they
these
don't.
clinics will always fertilize more eggs than they need. The ones that aren't used immediately are either placed into tubes and frozen, or are just thrown away. In the UK, this has been the fate of almost half of them. In other words, millions of human lives bred and slaughtered in broad daylight.
If you assume that life begins at conception, because technically, through IVF, it is not conceptualize, conceive. Is gestated? Whatever the term is. But because it's not viable, they tend to die.
And this is where we get to
And it's really sad for, the people who want to have children through IVF, due to a variety of reasons that makes it more difficult for them to have kids. Yeah, it's a mentally grueling process, I imagine. And I don't know, hopefully people will continue to develop technology so that the process is more effective. Because, yeah, I think nothing makes you feel worse about yourself than knowing, because like from the get-go, you already feel like you're deficient, that you cannot give birth, you cannot develop a fetus, I guess. And the fact that even when you get a quote unquote more, I'm inclined to not say better eggs or better sperm. That's very demeaning for them. But I can't think of another way of explaining it. But yeah, and knowing even when you do get those better eggs and still fail anyway, that's going to be very taxing for them. Anywho.
Imagine a whole bunch of weird scenarios. Suppose you're in a burning building with two exits. On the way out of one is a 1-year-old baby, and the other has a case with 1,000 IVF tubes. If you believe life begins at conception, you would have to save the tubes.
The 1,000,
and
yeah.
then probably explain to the screaming mother outside that at least her child was incinerated for a good cause. As you can imagine, a lot of pro-lifers are very reluctant to bite this bullet. Sometimes they might just say, okay, maybe life begins at implantation rather than conception.
Implantation? What the fuck? What does that even mean?
Which I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask, why? Is there any good reason to think an egg is less of a life before it implants?
Oh, when it implants in the uterus. Okay.
Or are you just moving the goalposts because treating fertilized eggs like people is completely unfeasible? But maybe there is a good reason for life beginning at implantation and I just haven't thought of it, so let's go with it. Because if we're saying life begins at implantation, then now I can introduce you to the next worst thing after fertility clinics: miscarriages. Now, miscarriages are not deliberate, so we can't really call them infanticide, but they are a pretty destructive act of nature, so more like a pandemic, perhaps? Really more like a plague. And if you believe a miscarriage is the death of a person, then there are a few more bullets you have to bite.
Is manslaughter. at insane amounts.
First, you'd have to be willing to invest an obscene amount of money into research towards stopping miscarriages. If it came down to a choice between that and, I don't know, Trump's wall, you would have to choose the former. In the meantime, we definitely have to enforce some kind of lockdown, or in other words, ban sex until we can figure out what the hell is going on. If the cure for miscarriages
no.
came out in the form of some kind of vaccine, you would have to mandate it. Obviously, what are you, a baby slayer? And if it turned out the best way to stop miscarriages was to reinforce the sperm of men, and the side effects of that treatment involved something like periodic bleeding with violent stomach cramps and mood swings for, say, 5 days out of every month, and at least once or twice in your life you have to push a lemon-sized object out of your dick hole, you would have to accept that.
Okay, wait. Okay, there's a lot to process there. First of all, okay, hang on.
But
Okay.
now, miscarriages are not deliberate, so we can't really call them infanticide,
But it's manslaughter.
but they are a pretty destructive
Right, that's manslaughter, right? If it's an accident, but you kill someone. The crime of killing a human being without malice aforethought. So it's an accident, right? Or otherwise in circumstances not amounting to murder. Okay. So if they don't die, is that it? Okay, the unlawful killing of a human being without malice. Yeah, okay. Involuntary. What? Okay, never mind.
active nature, so more like a pandemic, perhaps? Really more like a plague.
He's joking at this point,
And
okay?
if you believe a miscarriage is the death of a person, then there are a few more bullets you have to bite. First, you'd have to be willing to invest an obscene amount of money into research towards stopping miscarriages.
Which, to be fair, I think you should. Because that's, again, it's a traumatic experience.
If it came down to a choice between that and, I don't know, Trump's wall.
In this case, he's framing it as a joke against conservatives, specifically Republicans in the US. I'm sure if you ask him, should we put more research in preventing miscarriages, he would say yes. It's just a narrative device, as one might say.
You would have to choose the foreground, or in other words, from it to mandate it. And if it turned out that treatment mood swings for something like periodic bleeding,
Okay.
and the side effects of that treatment involved something like periodic bleeding with violent stomach cramps and mood swings for, say, have to push to accept, or someone would have to go. I know that's an absurd hypothetical, but
Thank you for admitting
it does
that.
show how far someone would have to go without breaking that initial principle. But you don't even really need an imaginary situation to show that. Some people, in fact, some countries, will make an exemption to allow abortions in cases of sexual
Okay.
assault.
Incest. Interesting tidbit to include.
But
Or a threat to the mother's health and life.
make an exemption to allow abortions in cases of sexual assault. But if we're being brutally honest, the question again would be, why? Maybe you could invoke bodily autonomy here because the victim didn't choose to get pregnant, but even here, the pro-life position is kind of unclear. Are they really going to say it's okay to punish a child for the sins of its father? If a child is conceived of rape and that's where their life begins, is there any meaningful difference between aborting them at 6 weeks and drowning them on their first birthday? Well, if you think the fetus is a person, then not really. If you really are pro-life, the only reason you would allow abortion in this case, but not for, say, a consenting adult, is because saying no to the 10-year-old makes you feel queasy. And this
Hang on. Okay, I lost that. I wasn't really paying attention just now because of the music. The music is really nice. I think you can tell that LonerBox has his own piano over there. And so far, all of his videos tend to have good music in the background. So,
the pro-life here because sexual assault.
okay.
But
See.
if we're being brutally honest, the question again would be, why? Maybe you could invoke bodily autonomy here because the victim didn't choose to get pregnant, but even here, the pro-life position is kind of unclear. Are they really going to say it's okay to punish a child for the sins of its father? If a child is conceived of rape up and that's where their life begins, is there any meaningful difference between aborting them at 6 weeks and drowning them on their first birthday?
Right. Because then in this case, they're comparable. They're both person and they're both a product of the R word or SA. Therefore, yeah, by that logic, it should be okay to drown the 1-year-old kid, as bleak as that sound, which is exactly the point he's trying to make.
Well, if you think the fetus is a person, then
Yeah.
not really. If you really are pro-life, the only reason you would allow abortion in this case, but not for
National Right to Life official. 10-year-olds should have had baby? For the consequence of the Supreme Court's decision to, and how far some states are willing to go to prohibit abortion. National Right to Life official. Yeah, 10-year-old, thank you. The 10-year-old Ohio girl who crossed state lines to receive an God, no. Holy. Crossed the state lines to receive an abortion in Indiana should have carried her pregnancy to term and would be required to do so under a model law written for state legislators. Oh no. That his law only provides exceptions if the person's life is in danger. As a 10-year-old, she would have had the baby, and as many women who have had babies as a result of the R word, we would hope that she would understand the reason and ultimately the benefit of having the child. Fucking hell, mate. Oh.
for, say, a consenting adult is because saying no to the 10-year-old makes you feel queasy. And this is where I think the pro-life position runs out of steam. And unless you think life begins at conception because God told you, in which case my God just whispered in my ear and he says you're full of shit, then you do have to deal with the idea that your marker is just as arbitrary as any of the other ones. Now, if you want that to be your personal marker, that's fine. But it does become a problem when you try to impose that morality on everyone else.
Okay, so I guess this is where the argument is going to come down to, is that you can't run a society under a pro-life framework. I guess this is where it's going. Because like, if you follow the pro-life framework to its fullest conclusion, then it could lead to such abhorrent outcomes, such as it's okay to drown a 1-year-old kid if they are a products of SA or R word. Or say like a 10-year-old who got pregnant should carry the baby to life. God, that's insane.
Because in practice, there is no pro-life position. It's a pro-birth position.
And I always love that LonerBox likes to use this music whenever he's about to reach the end of the video, when he's about to hammer the point.
The people who legislate against abortion don't care what happens to the child after they're born. They're often the least likely ones to step in for parents who can't afford a child, for the countless problems with adoption and foster care systems, for the emotional baggage of being an unwanted child. And they're not even really banning abortion. They're banning safe abortions. As for coat hangers, illegal procedures, potential increases.
That's insane. I can't imagine, like, why coat hangers? God, is there really no other alternatives? Is the whole thing about raw pineapples a myth? That you have to resort to coat hangers? God.
and pregnancy-related deaths, at least 3 women dying in Poland to pregnancy complications because of the chilling effects placed on doctors. That's all fair game for a law that isn't even guaranteed to reduce abortion that much. I mean, mate, it's the 21st century.
Yeah.
Come on.
Nice music. Quite apropos, given the context as well. Let's enjoy the music.
Quale sujet ex favela judicandus homo reus circo pace Deus pie su Jesu Domine.
That was nice. Oop, no. Shut up. Go away. Alright. Cool. So what did we learn? Maybe we should have the video open again. Just to trace the arguments. So switch to politics, cool. And let's bring out this thing and okay, just keep that one there. It's fine. So the argument was, so tones say, okay, key takeaways. 1, tones say it's only a cluster of cells. Not only, let's change that into something else. Make that a bullet point. There you go. It dehumanizes with quotation because we are not acknowledging them as humans. It dehumanizes the fetus from their perspective. And then what else? The thing about being heart dead versus brain dead, and how it can be used as to argue that maybe we need to put on some music. Hello, music. There we go. So, heart dead versus brain dead is, okay, introduce the argument by talking about dead people, right? That, okay, shit, there are several layers to this. You see, it's like, this goes to show how complex the argument is, that you need to guide people in a lot of ways. You need to funnel people into this logical conclusion to their position. It's not an easy subject. Okay, so where does the argument even start? Let's like begin. Don't say that. Okay, maybe we follow from here. Okay, let's pause the music for a bit.
You growing, that one's a myth. But what you
Okay, it's gonna
your
play an
hair and
ad.
finger
It's gonna play an ad. We'll just leave it be for now. Introduce the argument by talking about dead people and how their cells would still develop. Oh, we can skip the ad.
can do even after death.
Okay.
Gene expression where life begins when it's so easy actually is one of the easier,
Let's see.
but I don't really think I could use it as a rationale.
Truly believe that this is a human being. This,
Without
Still
a doubt.
funny.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is
It's
a
a
dolphin
dolphin.
fetus.
Use it as a rationale. Are we saying a child needs to look a certain way before we okay to kill them? Life begins at conception is that it actually is one of the easier positions to defend. Conception is the beginning of your journey as a
Journey.
unique human organism, and putting that
Okay. Let's use the. So conception is the
Starting your,
beginning of your journey. So this would be to address life begins at conception. Change the color to that.
journey as a unique human organism, and putting that starting point somewhere else can be a bit awkward, but
Okay.
not impossible. Here's a better question. Why do we struggle to agree on where life begins when it's so
Okay, and then the response would be, let's put a box there. Why do we struggle to agree on where life begins when it's so easy? Okay, wait. When it's so easy,
to agree on where life ends?
to agree on where life ends.
If gene expression really is the starting point and essence of human life,
Gene expression being what begins at conception, right? If gene expression
why do we really is the starting point and
really is the starting point
essence of human
and essence human
life,
life,
why do we find it so easy to pronounce people dead before their gene expression has ended? Because, yes, gene expression does not immediately end.
expression has ended because
Because, yes, gene expression does not immediately end.
yes, gene expression does not immediately end
When you die.
when you die. Then we get into the source. Can we expand this a bit? Hello? Yes? Can I? Okay, fine. There we go.
Some genes even become more active when you die.
So this is from BBC News. Luckily, he's nice enough to put in the sources down here. BBC News. I guess that's not one of the sources that's being placed here.
On top of that, your
Okay, remove that. And screenshot this real quickly. Shit. Okay. Ooh. Whoa, it's a biggie. It's chill. Okay. Zoom back in.
Cells can still grow. Your hair and fingernails don't
This is
continue
not
growing.
grow,
That one's a
okay.
myth. But what you can do, even after death, is give birth. A phenomenon that goes by the
So this
trajectory
one I
on
can
this one
skip it.
either. But what is death? So if gene expression can continue after death,
So if gene expression can continue after death,
what is death?
what is death?
Well, apparently scientists don't agree on this one either, but they generally give two answers. One is when the heart stops,
Cardiac death, not heart death.
but you could also argue that not every stopped heart counts as a death. Doctors will often try to bring a stopped heart back with a defibrillator.
Right. Okay. So it does tie into that. Okay. What is death? Even when the heart has stopped, doctors can bring them back with a defibrillator. That is interesting. So technically the heart already stops when they use the defibrillator. The moment when, the ringing happens, when it goes flatline, that means the heart stops. What am I talking about? Of course it means that the heart stopped. Okay.
And sometimes during surgery, they'll even push someone's ribs apart and try to massage the heart back to life. A lot more final. When the brain dies, it can't come back, and
Defibrillator. Usually brain dead is the more.
the patient is a lot more final. The second answer they'll give is brain death, and this one is a lot
More final.
more final. When the brain dies, it can't come back, and the patient is legally dead. Now, I don't want to get too far into the science here, so I can just simplify and ask, if a brain dead patient could have the rest of their body kept alive by machines, would a dead patient could have the rest of their body kept alive by machines, would they still be alive?
Kept
So their body kept alive
alive by a machine.
by machines,
Oh.
would they still be
Would they still be alive? No, right?
alive? My answer would be no, and when something similar to that happens in real life, it looks like doctors agree.
What's this? Life after brain death. Is the body still alive? The body of a brain dead person is usually not supported for very long. Green. Okay. Doctors sometimes provide support. La, la, la. If all of the criteria for brain death are met, then it's pretty clear that there is nothing left, and we're supporting the body.
No, and when
Okay, we can screenshot that as well real quickly. Beep, 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 beep. Cool. Awesome possum.
something similar to that happens in real life, it looks like doctors agree. Why is that the case? Well, I would say it's because the thing we're tying to the brain is human consciousness.
Oh, and then we go to the consciousness. Right.
So
right.
when we talk about protecting human life, brain is human. The case? Well,
So, why?
I would say it's because the thing we're tying to the brain is human consciousness. So when we talk about protecting human life, we're not really talking about protecting DNA or cells or genes. We're talking about sentience. That's the thing that makes us alive. Or I was thinking if this was a philosophy tube video, this is where I would
Okay,
in
it's
abortion.
card.
It turns out that humans, I can't pull that off. And when it comes to abortion, it turns out that humans first start to gain some level of
Okay. When it comes to abortion, I think this is the line of argument that you can present. When it comes to abortion,
sentience. It turns out that humans first start to gain some level of sentience at around 18 to 25 weeks, which is roughly the same time we consider to be the point of viability outside. Humans first start to gain some level of sentience at around 18 to 25 weeks,
just roughly.
which is roughly the same time we consider to be the point of viability outside of the womb. And
The point of viability outside of the womb. What does that mean again? Viability outside of the womb. And then is the point at which a fetus can survive outside the womb. Okay.
which is roughly the same time we consider to be the point of viability outside.
I see. Oh, okay. IE can survive. Damn, that's really early. 6 months, right? Yeah, 24 divided by 4 is 6. Yeah. Wait, what? What the hell?
outside of the womb and well past the time of
And well past the time of elective
abortions in most of Europe.
abortions in most of Europe.
Now, some of you might jump in here and say, well, what about people in comas? Or someone who's just been knocked out cold? Or someone who's sleeping?
Oh, the hell just happened? Here, and then we go to the... Okay, we need to be a bit more over there. And the counter would be what are people who's just been knocked out cold. I know it's not exactly ideal to create some kind of dialogue tree, but I think it's a pretty good framework to use. Cold or somewhat. I don't have to do that. Yeah. Sleeping.
Can we kill them because they don't have consciousness? To which I would say we do protect those people, but it's on the basis.
But then, can we kill them because they don't have consciousness? But they do, though. They do have consciousness, right? At some level, they still have minimum brain activity, as I've checked, I think, at one point.
That we expect them to regain consciousness in the future. Ah, but couldn't you apply that same argument to fetuses?
Right, so... consciousness. Can we apply that to fetuses? What? Can't we apply that to fetuses? And then we bonk them in the head.
Should we not protect them because they might gain consciousness in the future? But that
Should we not protect them because they might gain consciousness in the future? That's a bit complicated on the fingers.
That, I would argue, is comparing apples to oranges. In the case of a coma, their conscious experience has already established itself. The thing we're protecting already exists, and that isn't the case for the fetus.
Okay, let's just
And
keep
we
going.
don't typically protect things that have never existed. Consciousness, we now have a measure for life beginning and ending in the same way. And that's just nicer, isn't it? The one last objection yes, the reason I would say this one is preferable over all the other ones is that in practice, it works. Almost all of that's when we're getting into the area of health emergencies.
Okay, cool. All right. Oop. So apples to oranges in the case of a coma. Let's play the music again. In the case of a coma, their conscious experience is already established. Not for a fetus. Right? Yeah. You normally don't protect those that haven't existed, i.e. brain activities, right? Maybe you should screen cap the 25 weeks as well. You know? And there you go. Somewhere here. Cool. What does it refer to anyway? The functional capacity of the neural circuitry, basic neural substrate required. I see. Okay. That'll do, I guess. Oh my god. That took 2 hours to go through half an hour video. We did have a couple of stun locks. Mostly, we did a bit on contraceptives and also the baby coffin thing. Which is very morbid in a lot of ways. Boo boo, that could potentially be a material for your work. That one of the bodies being in a mortuary is someone who went through coffin birth. That'll be interesting. and it would play to your overarching grim aesthetic vibe. I don't know. Could be something you could consider. But yeah. So I guess so that's the main takeaway. So we try to nail them down to consciousness. I think that's what we're going for. Yeah. Because then when we argue for bodily autonomy, it gets too convoluted, even though, like, if we follow the argument that the simulation that LonerBox made, there's still wriggle rooms, I think. But then you kind of shoot yourself in the foot from the get-go if you try to present, what was it? A fetus as. Although I guess if you can be a bit facetious. How do you even spell that? If you try to be annoying to your opponent in a very debate bro-ish way, you can do that. But again, that doesn't generally jive with most people. So yeah. Okay. It's 10:30. Do I want to keep going by reviewing the paper thing, or do I want to play Elden Ring? Because this took longer than expected. I was not expecting 2 hours just to go through the video. Maybe I should take a break, like a nice quick break. And I'll get back. We'll see whether I'm in the mood to do some more research stuff. Be right back, okay? Alright, I am back. And I haven't decided on what to do, honestly. So there are two possibilities. Well, three. One, I play Elden Ring. Two, I can read the gender wage gap paper. And the third one is dig deeper on abortion. Get some stats out of the way. On the kinds of policies, for instance. That could be something that I could do. But I don't know. Like, I've been reading the paper for... Okay, let's have that open real quickly. The gender wage gap paper. It's a pretty huge one, apparently. So this is one of the papers that Unlearning Economics cited. It's 123 pages. Oh my god, you know? And I've been reading on it, at least the first 2 chapters. And I'll admit it's quite a challenging feat. I haven't read a long paper like this for quite some time. Hang on, let me just drag this to the side. We can close this. I have been trying to summarize it. As you can see from here, I'm still on chapter 2, and it's pretty much going through the general gender pay gap in the US from 1981 to 2011, to be precise. And it's interesting to look at the various avenue that you can explore the subject. And yeah, I do want to keep reading, so because like it's a pretty useful framework if you want to do research on the gender pay gap. As you can see from here, you can look at even when you compare weekly wages to annual wages, it can lead to different outcomes. I'm not sure why, as I tag over here. And I made a note here that they're pretty inconsistent in terms of how they define their samples, their the objects that they're studying, switching from female to male and then women and men like constantly, which is quite noticeable for someone who's learned that there is a distinction between sex and gender. Like I try to be as consistent as possible, and personally, outside of the subject of biology, yeah, the usage of female and male, they're irrelevant now. It's just men and women. That's the most socially useful term to use, because that's the more accurate term that we use. But anyway, so like as you can see from here, the figure 1, it says female to male earnings ratios, and here it says like in here, unadjusted female to male log hourly wage ratios, and yet the sample size is men and women. So which one is it, right? But well, I mean, but again, the paper came out in 2017. It's quite modern, I would say. It's not that late. I mean, the whole transgender awareness didn't really pick up, I mean, to a point that it is today during this year. But still, oh well. Made some summaries. So they tried to compare how the pay gap, to what extent the pay gap exists within different percentiles. And turns out the higher you go, the more prevalent the gap is. I think that's the key finding, right? So like, yeah, in 1980, sure, women at the top had a slightly higher pay ratio, i.e. more gap, than those in the middle, and a slightly lower pay ratio than those at the bottom. So it's slightly higher than those in the middle, but it's still lower than at the bottom. So the bottom, they still suffered the most. But in 2020, women at the top was considerably less than that at the middle and bottom of the wait, what? A woman's relative pay, not the ratio itself. So it kind of switched places with the one at the bottom percentile. So the one at the bottom and the middle, they caught up a lot, but then at the top, it didn't, kind of stagnated a bit. So yeah, in terms of progress, the top were the slowest, resulting in this outcome. Which one is it? So the smaller the percentile is the... Wait, what? I'm confused. Anyway, never mind. And then after that, they tried to compare it based on work experience and schooling, and also whether or not they've reached managerial positions or professional jobs, even though they did so initially, apparently people classify working as a K-12, is it K-12? Where is it? K-12, which is kindergarten. Teacher and nursing counts as professionals, which is like, no, they don't. People don't consider them as professionals. When we hear the word professionals, we think about lawyers, doctors, accountants, architects. So, which are, well, more associated with men. That's why they provide another qualification, which is male professional jobs. That's interesting. And the finding, yeah, it's more prevalent, the gap. What else did they do? The one that I've covered. They controlled some stuff. Forgot what it was. Oh, they tried doing it unadjusted, which is depicted in the blue bars here. Hang on. Oh, no. Hello? Yeah, move it to the left. Like so, yeah. Unadjusted, the gap is 62%, but it kind of improved to 2010 at 80%. Hang on, let me drink. But when you control for human capital specification, work experience, education, it's and industries and whatnot, it's 82%. But when you control for discrimination, unexplained variables, so to say, it becomes 90%. Mind you, by control means that you neglect those factors. So yeah. So even when you don't consider differences in occupations, experience, education, and unexplained variables such as discrimination, it's still 10%. That's bad. Like, imagine that you belong to a group where you make 10% less. I mean, it's not even the worst if you don't take those into account. It's 20%. Like, damn. These are some more details. They take into consideration unionization as well. There's something about collective bargaining where it turns out collective bargaining coverages have dwindled, has dropped significantly, especially for men. That's interesting. But yeah, that's where I've stopped. So they have this section, which is section 3, which is called Traditional Factors Affecting the Gender Pay Gap. And it's broken down to 9 factors over here. Now, I think what I'm going to do is that let's read on number 8 and 9. 8 and 9. And then we'll see where it goes. Theories on labor market discrimination. But it's pretty long. When you look at the paper... Oh, wait. Let's try to search for theories on labor market discrimination. Ooh. Okay, it's British. What? Nani? Let's go down. Data appendix. Oh, that's the conclusion. Ooh, double bind for women. Okay, this should be the section that I want. Ooh, what is this? Norms, psychological attributes. This is going to be very interesting as well. I do want to read that maybe in the next stream. But for now, let's read up on these ones first. 3.9 and 3.8. There you go. Okay. To the extent that gender differences in outcomes are not fully accounted for by productivity differences due to... Okay, I think the music is a bit loud. One moment. Can't really hear myself think. Yeah, it's barely touching the yellow now. Should be better. To the extent that gender differences in outcomes are not fully accounted for by productivity differences due to gender differences in human capital, models of labor market discrimination offer an explanation. Okay. Uh-huh. Whoa, what happened there? Music just disappeared. Okay. Okay. Under certain circumstances as discrimination, okay, discriminatory employers will only hire women at a sufficient wage discount that compensates them for the disutility of employing women. Okay. That's... well, it's one way of putting it. compensates them for the disutility of employing women. To compensate for their discomfort for having to put up with having a woman in the workplace, essentially. Discriminatory male workers will demand a wage premium to work with women. Okay. Oh, so there are three okay, let's put that in. Discrimination as a taste and analyze 3 cases. Held by employers, co-workers, and customers. So we start with the employers here. And now the co-workers. Men will demand a wage premium, so they demand higher pay. Work with women. That's crazy. And for our customers, I think we need to zoom this in a bit. It's a bit too small. And drag that to the left. Yeah, that should be better to read. Oh, it's really huge now. Reluctance of them to buy goods or services provided by women will make women less productive. Terms of revenue brought in, thus depressing their relative wages. Imagine going to a store and looking at, oh, it's owned by women, or the employees are women, or a certain group, and you're like, nah, I ain't going here. I mean, you see that today, I guess, with certain race and ethnicity. That's unfortunate, to say the least. Becker and others have pointed out that competitive forces should reduce or eliminate employer discrimination in the long run. Sure, okay. I think I read this in my labor econ class. One answer why this does not appear to have occurred. Okay, we can write that down. Arrow pointed out that competitive forces should reduce or eliminate employer discrimination in the long run, as the least discriminatory firms which hire more lower priced female labor. That's already ridiculous framing. But then it doesn't really, okay. Cost of production, and should outcompete the more discriminatory firms. That's a dumb framing. Because now you're still discriminating by not paying them adequately. It's just a very profit incentive lens, I guess. One answer to why this does not appear to have occurred, suggested initially by Becker himself, is that discrimination will be located in sectors of the economy that are not competitive. Means discrimination will be located in sectors of the economy that are not competitive. Oh god, I'm getting sleepy. Wait, come on. Stay up. Stay awake. While Becker emphasized monopolistic elements in the product market. Oh shit. Oh no, should I end? Oh god, okay. Can we survive? Can we survive? While Becker emphasized monopolistic elements in the product market, a related approach targets monopolistic power on the part of the employer in the labor market. What? Oh, okay. This is the counter perspective. Monopsony could help to explain how discriminatory gender wage differences arise and persist if employers wield greater monopsony power over women than men. Okay. This is very theoretical. And if you're talking about monopsonistic power, it applies to everyone. Monopsonist perspective. Madden and Black. Discriminatory wage, gender wage differences rise and persist if employers wield greater monopsony power over women than men. So I guess because now they're only, due to the discrimination, there are only few demand from the businesses, from the employers who would hire women. That means they carry more bargaining power, which could exacerbate the wage differences, I imagine. To hold women's supply of labor to the firm must be less wage elastic than men's. Must be less wage elastic. So it should be more inelastic, right? Yeah, that makes sense. So the change in women supply of labor, it wouldn't change the wage. But then again, if it's inelastic, then they're necessary regardless. What does wage elastic means? God, we still have all of these tabs. I think I should close it, open a new tab. Okay. The elasticity of labor supply is the percent change in amount of labor supplied due to a percent change in wages. Oh, so it's the other way around. Okay. So it's more inelastic. Regardless of wage changes, then it wouldn't change the number of women labor supply. How would that happen? Yeah, this might seem counterintuitive at first blush. Oh, my mind is really trying to stop me from thinking. Okay, I'm taking an executive decision. Fuck this. Oh, God. I'm too sleepy. I'm getting old. I can't stay up for too long anymore. It's okay. Come on. Let's keep going. Just a couple of more pages. Wage elastic. Change in supply due to change in wage. Then men's. This might seem counterintuitive. In that there is clear evidence that women have a larger own wage elasticity of labor supply. Okay, what does that mean? Own wage. Thank you. The own wage elasticity of labor demand is a key parameter of interest in labor economics. Yeah, I need the definition. Of it's labor supply, actually. Let's find the word own. Our survey. Wait. Oh. I need definition. Okay, can't seem to find one here. The change in employment due to change in wage rate. It keeps saying demand of labor, whereas here is of labor supply. So if we take this definition, I mean, it still refers to the same one, right? Where did I say it just now? Change in supply due to change in wage. Okay. Okay. So, in order for the monopsonistic perspective to hold, then it needs to be against the evidence. Alright, let's keep reading. How do they defend it? Then men. Although... Okay. However, a variety of factors could still potentially result in women having a smaller responsiveness to wage changes at the firm level. The most intriguing possibility is discrimination itself. Right. Okay. Argued that due to discrimination against women, they face higher search costs for jobs, that is. Like there's more risk of getting rehired if you quit, leading to more inelastic wage elasticity. Then men, therefore increasing the employer's, hang on, monopsony power. Okay, that makes sense. But then how do you because like this whole thing started with the evidence that there is a larger own wage elasticity, so that they're more elastic, right? Which is interesting in and of itself, because although I guess because there's gender role at play, that there's less expectation for women to be at work, therefore they are more it's an easier decision for them to stop working if they consider the wage to be not intriguing enough. I guess that's where it's going. That could be the argument. In addition, models of statistical discrimination. Oh shit. This one's a bit loud. Sorry about that. Yeah, as long as the music doesn't touch the yellow bar, it's fine. In part to explain the persistence of discrimination in the long run in the face of competitive forces. Such models assume uncertainty and imperfect information. Yada yada. Okay. As a consequence, firms may pay women less, exclude them from jobs requiring substantial firm-specific training, or deny them promotions. Yes. It has been argued that such statistical discrimination. Wait. What is the through line here? Oh, okay. So due to the discrimination means that they value women less in terms of productivity. Therefore, as a consequence, they would pay them less and they would exclude them from jobs requiring training because they deem that it's not as lucrative or useful, and they would, of course, deny them promotions. Okay, makes sense. Can type that down. Argue that as women are perceived to be less valuable, less productive. They're paid less. They're less likely. Lead to be excluded from jobs that require training. And deny them of promotion, which is a classic one, of course. It has been argued that such statistical discrimination is consistent with profit maximization and can thus persist in the face of competitive forces. Yeah, through their perspective, discriminating against women is in service of profit maximization when it's based on irrational decision making. Nation is consistent with profit maximization and can thus persist in the face of competitive forces. They believe that discriminating against women is in service of profits, even though their basis is irrational or anecdotal. Okay. However, Aigner and Kane contend that such models are no more convincing in explaining the persistence of discrimination than models based on tastes. Okay. To the extent that employers' views are correct, the lower expected productivity of women will reduce their wages, but women as a group will be paid their expected productivity. Are you sure about that? Oh, expected productivity, okay. This does not constitute labor market discrimination as economists defined it. Pay differences that are not accounted for by productivity differences. But it's based on expectation, the perception. And it excludes the monopsonic power that is embedded into the discrimination itself. Like, sure, in terms of output, it may be the same, but when you take into account the higher bargaining power that employers have against women compared to men, then they would still be paid less. It's still labor market discrimination. I don't understand why would they say it's not. And that employers' views are correct, which they are not. The lower expected activity of women will reduce their wages. I still don't like the use of the word expected here. That kinda it does a lot of work here. Lifting. But women as a group will be paid their expected productivity. This does not constitute discrimination. Pay differences that are not counted for by productivity differences. Yeah, but it's perceived though. See productivity. Not to mention this discounts the aforementioned monopsonic power that disproportionately favors firms hiring women. Doesn't make sense to me. Moreover, they argue that when employer beliefs regarding average differences are erroneous, discrimination clearly exists, but discrimination based on such misperceptions is even less likely to persist. Das ist es la das S's. Okay. When employer beliefs regarding average differences are erroneous, discrimination clearly exists, but discrimination based on such misperceptions is even less likely to persist. What? I don't get it. Okay, however, if women's productivity is less reliably predicted than men's, this difference may lead to a productivity shortfall among women if assignment mistakes are important. In this case, even with free entry, the discriminatory differential might persist. Although the authors expect that a market for more accurate productivity assessment would arise. Are you sure about that? They don't care. Reducing such a differential. They wouldn't. Come on. Again, you mentioned profit maximization, right? If they could get away with paying them less, then they would. Who's going to push for it? The women? During those times? Would they be even allowed to speak up? Although they acknowledge that less reliable predictions of a group's productivity combined with risk aversion, it's a lot of mumbo jumbo. They're going out of their ways to justify gender discrimination, so fuck that. Not even gonna waste time in understanding their argument. From a normative perspective, the answer may be yes, to the extent that basing employment decisions on a characteristic like sex could be viewed as inequitable. True. Indeed, the practice of judging an individual on the basis of group characteristics rather than upon his or her own merits seems the very essence of stereotyping or discrimination. Okay, where is this going? Such behavior is certainly not legal, for example, under anti-discrimination laws and regulations. Now consider the situation where the employer perceptions are incorrect. If there's a feedback effect, this may be a credible source of persistent discriminatory pay differences. But how do you prove that exactly? For example, if employers incorrectly expect that women are more likely to quit their jobs, they may respond by giving women less firm specific training or assigning them to dead-end jobs. Faced with fewer incentives to remain on the job, women might respond by exhibiting the higher turnover that employers expect. So there could be a secondary effect to the discrimination. Likely to quit their jobs, they may respond by giving women less firm specific training or assigning them to dead-end jobs. Faced with fewer incentives to remain on the job, women may respond by exhibiting the higher turnover that employers expect. So it's like a cycle in a way. Like a self-perpetuating cycle that justifies the biases that employers have, which is adequately responded by the women in a way that perpetuates the perception. Okay. Bertrand, Chug, and Mulay Nathan coined the term implicit discrimination. Okay. Which argues that discriminatory attitudes and stereotyping may be unconscious. Oh, my brain cells. Suggesting they would not be easily eliminated. Agree. A lot of people don't realize that they are discriminating against their own group sometimes. The internalized discrimination can be racism, bigotry, transphobia, or misogyny. Indeed. As gender discrimination has become less socially acceptable, it has likely become less overt and more subtle, as well as unconscious. Finally, as our discussion of discrimination can adversely affect women's human capital investment and labor force attachment by lowering the market rewards. Okay. Discrimination can adversely affect women's capital investments and labor force attachment by lowering the market rewards to this behavior through feedback. Don't know what that means, but okay. Models based on taste for discrimination are consistent with employment segregation, but do not necessarily predict it will occur. If wages are flexible, it is possible that discrimination will result in lower pay for women, but produce little or no segregation. True, yes. However, if discriminatory taste against women in traditionally male pursuits are both strong and prevalent, women may tend to be excluded from these areas. Okay. Good point. Flexible, it is possible that discrimination will result in lower pay for women, but produce little or no segregation. However, if discriminatory taste against women in traditionally, we need to bold that, traditionally male pursuits, both strong and prevalent, women may tend to be excluded from these areas. Yeah, I think it plays into the discrimination, the three types of discrimination, where in this case it's not just the employer's discrimination. Well, I guess in some respects yes, but then it reached the point where they don't even want women there in the first place, thus creating men jobs and women jobs. If such segregation does occur, it may or may not be associated with gender pay differentials. Excuse me. In the presence of sufficient employment opportunities in the female sector, equally qualified women may earn no less than men. In the presence of sufficient employment opportunities in the female sector, in the women's sector, equally qualified women may earn no less than men. Yeah, because then there's no monopsony power. Kind of. If potentially equally qualified men and women are segregated by occupation, wages in male and female jobs will be determined separately by the supply and demand for labor in each sector. If potentially equally qualified men and women are segregated by occupation, right, the wages in male and female jobs will be determined separately by the supply and demand for labor in each sector, and how each jobs are valued, which is not always tied to supply and demand. Workers in male jobs will enjoy a relative wage advantage if the supply of labor is more abundant relative to demand for female than for male occupations. Which, yeah, I mean, the number of women outweighs the men. I think that's it. I'm ending it here. I'm way too sleepy. I don't think I can survive anything more. But it will be interesting reading the evidence of the labor market discrimination and going through all of this shit as well. Ooh, we talk about negotiation. We're gonna talk about agreeableness as well in this part. Competition, risk aversion as well. Ooh, these are spicy bits. I love this paper. It's good. It's very extensive. It's a very useful framework if you want to learn about gender discrimination in the workplace. But alas, I can't keep going. I'll keep reading chapter 2 in my spare time. But I will finish reading this paper on stream because I think it's very useful. That was a fun little stream. It's pretty short. It's only 3 hours. And it's interesting watching LonerBox video. I think that was nice. It was fun. I really like his content. He really knows how to synthesize information. And his delivery is also nice. And they're not too long, generally speaking. So that's nice. Because like sometimes video essayists, not only they're not too long, but the delivery is more punchy. It's not meandering like a lot of video essayists. Like I tend to find them a bit, they want to deliver one point, but it's very roundabout. The video was amusing to listen to. Thank you, Boo Boo. Okay, I think we can turn up the volume of the music. I think it's because I recorded these music with different settings. Which is why they have different voice levels. I might have to re-record them so that when I play them I don't have to keep tweaking the audio levels. I'll consider that. Or even make them into one playlist, like in one audio file or something. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah. So what next? On Sunday, we'll keep reading the paper. I think that's definitely one of the main goals. We can read that one chapter, one more sub-chapter, I suppose. And after that, and aside from that, we can watch a video of, I think there's an interview that I want to read, I want to watch, which is from Asumsi.
Lebih panjang dan lengkap, emang lebih asik.
Shut up. Where is it? It's about the congestion. I want to watch that. Where is it? It's not that long ago. Well, we'll watch it. I know it's here somewhere. But for now, we're gonna end the stream. Oh my god, my ears hurt. That was fun. I do need to find out how to actually capitalize on these streams, like create clips and upload them as individual videos, like trying to make use of them instead of just leaving the stream into the void. Because like they're pretty useful, I think. Especially if I'm covering more like shorter things that don't take too long. Like let's say the RKUHP debate took like 3 hours or 4 hours to cover, so I don't think that's feasible. That could be a standalone video, I guess. But for other stuff, like the LonerBox video, for instance, I think I can turn that into a video. I hope there's no feedback from the from the headphones. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But for now, that is all from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. For those who are stopping by or watching the VOD, hope you enjoy. Hopefully this time the audio levels are better. Like prior to the stream, I tried to make sure to check what's the ideal audio levels. And because like in the previous videos, in the previous streams, my voice is way too loud. It overpowered the recordings I was listening to. So hopefully now it's better. But yeah, so again, on Sunday, the video from Asumsi about Jakarta's congestion and reading more on this gender pay gap article, and maybe something else, I don't know what else. And definitely playing Elden Ring because I want to defeat Verdun. Hopefully we'll get to do that in the next stream. Thank you, Boo Boo. Thank you for watching. See you guys on Sunday, I guess. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Good night, okay? Thank you, Boo Boo. As always. Night, night.